Daniel, what the fuck? Like, you really? Like, you keep relapsing or you keep doing this shit when you look what you have. Look what I have, right? Like, I'm staying away and I got fucking nothing.
Welcome to Across the Table from Across the Pond, the podcast where nothing is off limits. I'm joined by Adam Lyons from the Modern Meeting, and instead of a one-way interview, today we are flipping the script. We've both brought questions, topics, and red-hot opinions to the table, and we're going to challenge each other, debate it out, and maybe even change each other's minds along the way. So with that said, I'm really excited to jump into this. Adam, great to see you. How are you doing today?
Good, Daniel. How you doing, bud?
All good, all good. Very excited for this today. So I'm going to go straight in at the deep end, and I'm going to ask you off the bat, do you regret your gambling?
Mm, God, I mean, it's such a simple question, but it's such a loaded question. I mean, if you listen to the Modern Meeting, you know that I always say, whatever just popped into my head, I have to say. The first thing that popped in my head was, I don't regret it because I'm here, right? Like, I'm doing what I have realized was my life's mission, which is to help others and eventually work in recovery. But I have to think of what if, right? Like, I know I'm not supposed to think that way in recovery, like what if, but I got to think what if? What if I just, you know, there's all kinds of things that could have happened that would have changed my life's trajectory. But I do think that all roads would have ended with gambling, right? If I got married young, if I, if I had a kid young, if I went to GA and if I went to jail, if all these things that would have changed my trajectory, I think they all would have ended up on a Keno slot. So I have to stick with my original thing. Like, no, I don't regret it because not only did it bring me here, but I think it's what was supposed to happen all along.
We're off,
What
off on
about
the
you?
mark. We're off on the mark on the same opinion because I do not regret my gambling addiction, despite all the damage, all
Yeah.
the pain, all the hurt I've caused. Going through all that pain, going through all that shame, feeling all that remorse, that inspired me to change, to finally change. When I was 34 years old, I finally realized I cannot live my life this way any longer. And since 34, I'm now 38, I have done so much to improve myself. And I say it all the time. I am now the best version of myself that I've ever been. And I don't believe that I would have had the motivation to do that had I not been living my life the way I was living it for 20 years and experiencing all that pain and all that struggle. I've accepted I had to go through all that to be exactly where I am today. And fingers crossed, touch wood, as long as I keep doing the work that I do, I'll never go back to that. And I'll continue to improve that little bit each day.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of brings me to my first question I had for you, which I don't know if it's an actual question. Your kids are a very big part of all of your videos, right? I know your wife and kids are a big part of your story. My question to you is, and once again, I don't even think it's a question, but when I think of what my addiction and my recovery has been like for me as someone who is alone, right? Like, I have my parents, I have my brother, I have my nephew, but I'm alone, okay? I'm in this apartment alone right now. I I don't have anybody. And I have to be honest. When I see someone like you who had the loving guardian angel amazing wife, who has the two beautiful girls, I want to be like, Daniel, what the fuck? Like, you really? Like, you keep relapsing or you keep doing this shit when you look what you have. Look what I have, right? Like, I'm staying away and I got fucking nothing, right? What do you once again, it's not a question. I guess it's just a starting off point for the conversation.
So my gambling before I met Julie, my gambling back home, it still impacted my mum, my sister, my brother, my dad. However, they're not as attached is the wrong word, but yeah, it's not the same relationship as having a wife and children. And when I moved to Australia, I moved here for Julie. I met her when I was on holiday here. We did long distance for a year, and then I moved here specifically to be with Julie. I didn't love Australia, but I was in love with this girl, and I stopped gambling before I came here. I started seeing a gambling counsellor in England. I think I had about 8 months clean when I got here, and I stayed clean for about 8 months after being here. And then I ended up going back into it. The Like, you know how you have them justifications while you're gambling. You have the addiction and speaks to you in your own voice and gives you those justifications. So once my first daughter was born, I remember looking at her. I was there. The doctor made me the doctor didn't. The doctor asked if I wanted to cut the cord, and I was like, no. And my wife was like, get in there now and cut it. And I cut the cord, and I'm just holding this baby, and I'm just like, I had this for while I was still in the room. I'm like, I am never gambling again. I've got this little miracle in my hands. I am never going to gamble again. And then a few months down the
Exactly.
line, like you said, I've said it many times. You quoted me. I always wanted to be a dad. That was always my dream. I always wanted the family, the happy family. I think my mum and dad splitting up when I was very young hurt me that much that I wanted to sort of get my own version of that, and I wanted to make sure it was rock solid. It was never gonna fracture like my family did. And I remember sitting there on the couch one day and my daughter was crawling on the floor and I'm already back in it at this point. I'm looking at the Bitcoin charts and I'm just watching my money go up or go down, whatever it's doing. And Haley's crying for my attention. She needs me to get off the couch and get to her. And I'm busy doing this trade on my phone. And I just remember thinking, oh, it's okay. Once I win all this money, I can just pay for a nanny to fix this situation and I can carry on doing what I'm doing. And then as I look back on that, I'm like, that's what the addiction did to me. I wanted to be a dad. I wanted to be wanted by my daughter. I wanted to be needed by my daughter and be there for her. Whereas as soon as I've got this phone in my hand and I'm looking at the Bitcoin charts, all I want is the Bitcoin charts, and I want to pay for a nanny to go and do the thing that I wanted. That was the dream for me to do all my life. And just like looking back on
Yeah.
that, I can't explain it as I'm in it, but looking back on it, I'm just like, that is how powerful the disease is. That it just made me completely change what I thought was the most important thing. And then when my final daughter was born, justifications in my head were, I need to provide for these girls and I need to provide for my wife. Call me sexist. I always believed that my wife shouldn't have to work. She should stay home. I always wanted to be the sole provider in my family. Unfortunately, because of my disease, that hasn't been the case. But the addiction sold that to me. The addiction said, if you keep going with this, you'll eventually hit that big win. That's the difference from gambling addiction to drug addiction, alcohol addiction. The addiction tells you keep doing this addiction and that's your way out. So the justifications in my head were, I'm going to win it big. I'm going to win that million eventually. I'm going to win 2 million eventually. And then I can give my daughter the attention that she wants. I can be the provider that I dream of being. My wife won't have to go to work anymore. The addiction spoke to me in my own voice in my head and tell me this will eventually happen. You are entitled to this win. You've invested over 20 years into this gambling. You're going to get it eventually. Looking back, the few times I did get it, it didn't matter. I always went back again. That shame, that regret, that remorse, like I didn't want to be here anymore. I could not face up to letting these three people down. They're the only thing I ever wanted in the world. And I had them. Yet I'm still fucking my life up as best I can because of this addiction. And yeah, I, I'd made a plan to get out of this world. And luckily, I was able to see sense. And I imagined my two daughters growing up without a dad, and that was enough for me to just go. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do anything silly. I need to step up now and own up to what I've done. And I still use that fear. I still use that because I know if I have another relapse, that shame, that regret, that remorse will be amplified again. And I don't think I'll be able to make it through the other side of it. So that fear, I always say my addiction is, my recovery is a balance of fear and inspiration. So that fear, I still use that to this day to make sure I never go back out there because I know my wife hasn't got another relapse in her, and I don't think I've got another relapse in me. I honestly don't think I'd see myself through the other side.